Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Paul from the Garland County Library, and this program is being broadcast on Tuesday, August 13th, which means we are 83 days away from Election Day on Tuesday, November 5th. I'm about to be joined by Garland County Election Commission Chairman Gene Haley, who's going to cover everything you need to know about registering to vote, as well as the act of voting here in Garland County in 2024. He's also here to answer questions. So if you're watching live and have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask, and I will ask them to Gene on your behalf. So without further ado, I'm going to welcome Gene Haley. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Paul.
Of course. I'm a little upset about your choice of shirt today because I wore a tropical shirt because, you're well known for your Hawaiian shirts. And
this is close.
Not for you. I know you've got a wardrobe. I thought it was exclusively of tropical style shirts, but I thought I'd match you today. You let me down.
A nice shirt.
Thank you. It has my cat on it.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah, it's my favorite shirt. Anyway, can you believe it's only 83 days until the election?
It's getting close. It's crunch time.
Yep. You've been with the Election Commission how long?
I've actually worked in elections in Garland County since 1999. I've actually been on the Election Commission since 2015.
Wow. Yeah, I've been paying more attention to politics these last few years than I ever have in my life. So my sense of time is just completely warped. Does this seem like it's been a longer or shorter election cycle to you?
Well, they always seem shorter when you get busy. For a long time, you wait, then all of a sudden, when it gets to the 1st of August, it's crunch time and it becomes hectic because you have polling places, you have poll workers to recruit, you have a lot of stuff going on besides laying out the ballot and making sure the candidates' names are spelled right and all the other things we do.
Yes, it sounds very stressful, but you're also 25 years of experience at this point. So
yeah, I don't get real excited about it anymore.
Okay, well, all right, Gene, I'm going to let you take over for a little bit and give us a general overview of what voters need to know about everything dealing with the election process this year. And when you're done, I'm going to jump back in and I'll ask you some questions. Sound good?
Sounds good.
All right.
Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about is, of course, November 5th. That is Election Day. But because it's a general election, there's 2 weeks worth of early voting. So we'll have 6 locations for early voting. Right now, it's possible we could find more before we have to do it by the first week in September. So it's getting pretty close to finding locations. But 6 of the last 7 we used in the last election will continue to be early voting locations. And we'll have 16 locations on Election Day. In the primary election back in March, we had a little over 12,000 votes. Because this is the presidential year. In the general election, I expect 45,000 votes. So 3.5 times what we did in the primary. So it'll be a little more hectic, a little longer wait times. That's why I urge everybody to vote early. When you have 2 full weeks of early voting, you should have plenty of time to pick a time and a location, because in Garland County, you can vote at any open location if you're a registered voter. So I encourage everybody to get out and vote early for a lot of reasons. One, we don't have enough equipment for 45,000 people to vote on Election Day. We need to spread that out as best we can. So early voting begins on October 21st and runs 2 full weeks. That's Monday through Friday, 8 to 6, and then Saturday, those 2 Saturdays, 10 to 4. Then the very last day, because of state law, the Monday, November 4th, we close at 5 o'clock for whatever reason. That's just the way the law is written. Then on Election Day, the polls are open 7:30 in the morning to 7:30 at night. So the deadline to register to vote for this election is 30 days before the election. So the election is November 5th, so therefore October 5th would be the last day. I believe that falls on a weekend, so the next day would be the cutoff day to register to vote. But If you voted in the last election, if you voted in the last 2 years, you're still registered to vote. But you can certainly check your voter registration by calling the county clerk, or you can go to our website, garlandcountyvote.org, and there's a place for you check my voting registration, and you put in your name and your date of birth, and it will show you that you are registered. It'll also show you a sample of the ballot when that's available. Now, the ballots won't be available probably for another month, but shortly after we draw for a position on the ballot, which happens on the 23rd of this month, shortly after that, we will have sample ballots available, and you can go online, check your voter registration. You can print out your ballot, a copy of it. You can actually bring that to the poll and use it as a cheat sheet. You just can't show it to anybody because voting is private. But I urge everybody to do that, to know what's on the ballot before they get there, because there will be some issues on the ballot. We don't know how many yet because some of them are tied up in court. But for sure, there will be at least 2 and maybe as many as 4 issues on the ballot. Because the issues are difficult to understand, I encourage everybody to print out their ballot and read and study on those issues before they go to the polls. The law allows you 10 minutes to vote, but some of these things you can't read in 10 minutes because they're multiple pages long. Some of them as many as 27 pages long. So you can't read all that information and decipher it and make a decision. So I encourage you to decide what you want to do before you go to vote. Even for candidates, to make sure you know which district you're in, which Justice of the Peace district, or if you're in the city, which city director district you're in, to make sure you know all that information before you go. An informed voter is a best voter, to make sure we're just not guessing. We know a little bit about who we're voting for. On this election, we'll have, of course, president and vice president. We'll have U.S. Congress, District 4. We'll also have the state treasurer. This will be the remaining 2 years of a 4-year term for the state treasurer, which passed away last year. You'll also have the state Supreme Court Chief Justice. This is a runoff election from the 2 highest vote getters in the primary. That will be on the ballot. And then you'll have your state rep, possibly a state senate. There's 2 districts for state senate in Garland County, District 6 and 7. District 7 is not on the ballot. It'll be on the ballot 2 years from now. District 6 is on the ballot, but it's unopposed. And also the state reps. We have 5 state reps, and 3 of those are unopposed, and 2 of them have opposition. Justice of the Peace, depending on what district you live in, a little more than half of them have opposition. City directors, we have 2 Hot Springs city directors that are contested, and we have 1 that is not. On some of the smaller towns, we do have some contested races in those towns. So there's a lot of things going on, at least 20 contested races on the ballot. So which is why we need to kind of figure out what's going on before we go and just blindly try to guess at who the best candidate is. So I do encourage everybody to do a little homework and figure out what's best for them. As far as poll workers, most of Arkansas, most counties I've talked to are having a really difficult time getting poll workers, because because I've done this for a while. We've recruited a pretty core group, and we try to add some every time. Right now, we have about a little over 300 in our pool that have agreed to work this election. We only need about 250, so we are in very good shape right now today. Doesn't mean something won't happen between now and the election, but We do train poll workers. We actually have to give them a test to ensure they know what they're doing. And all that happens in the next few weeks before we get to October 21st, which is when early voting starts. What else? Let's see. The locations, like I said, we have 6 early voting locations and 16 election day locations. Most of these locations will be exactly the same if you voted in the primary. And that list again will be posted on our website, and of course it'll be published in the paper also. We do have a new one. The Bill Edwards Center, which is right next to the airport, will be our location for early voting and election day in that part of town. We used to use the old Gardner School, but using the school is a little bit problematic. There's some security concerns, so we're moving that location over to the Bill Edwards Center. Other than that, the locations will be the same as we used in the primary. That's what I've got, Paul. If you've got any questions yet, or
Sure, absolutely. So if you're watching live, please don't hesitate to comment those questions. But I guess let's just start from the voter registration process. What can you explain how voter registration and the deadline works for kids that are currently 17 and going to be 18 by election day?
So if you're going to be 18 by election day, you can register 6 months before the election or 6 months before your 18th birthday. The county clerk controls voter registration. So she basically tells us who can vote. And then our job is, at the election commission, is to make sure they get the right ballot and again, answer any questions they have. So you have to register 30 days prior to the election. So if they're going to be 18 before the election, time is now. Do it today. The forms available, you can download them from our website, the county clerk's website. I think we probably even have copies here at the library. Now, if you fill out a hard copy, it'll tell you to mail that to the Secretary of State. Because we're getting close to the election, I encourage everyone to just take it to the courthouse, take it to the county clerk's office. She'll make sure it happens. If it goes to Little Rock and gets lost in the shuffle, we just want to make sure that anybody that can legally vote gets to vote.
Yes, absolutely. And the county clerk's office is there in the old courthouse on Woodbine. It's right next to the building where the DMV is at and quorum court is held. So easy to find, very centrally located.
Correct. On the bottom floor, last door on the right. So the registration period for new voters, that's either somebody brand new or somebody moved from out of state, is 30 days prior to the election. If somebody's registered in Arkansas, but in, say, Saline County, they can move up to 4 days prior to the election. So they can actually go during the early voting period and get their registration transferred then. But I encourage everyone to check it in advance.
Yep.
If they've moved since the last election, we can actually change their address at the polls, but that takes time and it slows it down. So once again, I encourage everybody to go ahead and do that. If you go and check your voter registration and the address is not current, call the county clerk and she'll get it fixed for you.
And that answered one of my questions. If they have a change of address and they show up to the polls, you can correct that on site.
Absolutely. We can correct that on. And then basically we have to call the county clerk and confirm that the voter signed something agreeing to have their records changed. And then the county clerk will change the records and instantly we'll be able to give them the right ballot. There'll probably be, right now, I think 33 different ballots in Garland County. So it's important, and the ballot is triggered by your address. So if your address is right, you're going to get the right ballot. If your address is wrong, you're not going to get the right ballot.
Right. So if someone is to check their voter registration status on that Secretary of State website, Voter View, and that address is correct, then they're good to go from now until election. They know they're good.
Absolutely. If their name shows up, just the fact that their name shows up, it means they're registered. So there's a lot of talk about how you become unregistered, I guess is the right way to put it. And basically, once you register to vote, if you vote, you're always going to be registered. If you miss 2 federal elections, you'll be removed. So if you voted in 2022 and 2020, you're still registered to vote.
So if you haven't voted in a while, or you've had some kind of change like an address, make sure you check
now, because if you think, and we have every time somebody that did, especially in a presidential year, and we can't find where they're registered, and they say that they voted for Jimmy Carter, and it's hard to keep up with. So, but as long as they vote in each general election, they'll stay registered.
Excellent. So other than changes of address or things like that, are there any other common issues that you see that complicate voting when people show up, errors that they could fix now?
Well, of course, the voting registration address are the 2 most important ones. There's a lot of other reasons why we might have to do a little investigation. Arkansas requires you to have a photo ID, an approved photo ID, which is typically a driver's license, but it can be anything issued by the federal government, the state of Arkansas, or a college or trade school in the state of Arkansas. So as long as it has a photo and a name on it, that's what you need. And like I said, typically it is a driver's license, but you can use a passport, you can use a concealed carry permit, but it has to be something that's issued by the state or the federal government.
Does it have to have an address on it that matches what you have in your system?
It does not. We do not use that address to check. The voter basically states their address to us, and basically they are certifying that is their correct address, and we get it changed. But most people don't change their driver's license when they're supposed to, so we don't even look at the address on the ID.
Great. So say it's someone's first time ever voting, they get to the polls. In a nutshell, how would you explain to them what they can expect?
Well, the very first thing, of course, is we have to verify their voter registration. That is done with an electronic poll book, which has a list of, we have about 66,000 registered voters in Garland County. So we find the person on the poll book, we confirm their address, their date of birth, and if so, we'll issue them a ballot. And when issuing them a ballot, it's a printed card that has a little barcode on top of it that brings up the correct ballot for them. It doesn't say who they are. Voting is private. So once they enter that in our ballot marking machine, which we call an express vote, and really it is a fancy ink pen. All it does is mark the ballot. It does not do anything else. It doesn't keep anything in its memory, but it allows them to mark the ballot, print it out, and then they can look at the card where their choices are on the card. Before they print it out, they have the opportunity to change. They make a selection and change their mind, they can just make another selection. But after they print it out, they have another opportunity to look at it and make sure it's exactly what they want to do before they insert it in the scanner. We have a scanner at each location, and that's what actually counts the ballot. So anytime before that ballot goes in the scanner, it can be changed and fixed. But once it goes in that scanner, it's over. It's voted.
So they've made their selections, and then they have a chance to look at it, review it, confirm exactly what's going to be submitted, and they can feel confident knowing that that's the vote that's being submitted.
Correct. And if they happen to say that's not really what I wanted, and it happens sometimes with touch screens, marking devices, somebody has long fingernails and they try to touch and it picks the person above them, and people are so used to using their telephone that it's pretty sensitive. These ballot marking devices aren't. You have to hit them pretty hard to get them to register. So we have a lot of opportunities to make sure, again, before we insert that ballot into that scanner tabulator, that it's exactly what that voter wanted to do.
Do you ever have people get to the machine and they say, I don't see so-and-so on my ballot, I was going to vote for them?
Correct, and that happens a lot because the one I hear a lot is, they have a sign in my yard, I want to vote for them. But that's not the case. Based on their address, the county clerk assigns them to a precinct, and they're only legally allowed to vote for the people that are on the ballot for that precinct. Now, if they insist, we have a method of giving them a different ballot, but it becomes a provision, which means it does not count on election day. It has to be investigated. And if it is incorrect, we cannot count any of that ballot. So that's why I encourage everybody to do everything in advance to make sure they get the ballot they're supposed to vote on and the one they think they should vote on.
Yes.
By looking at their sample ballot early, they can do that.
And you probably mentioned this earlier before I jump back in. When will they be able to see their sample ballot?
It's approximately 30 days from now, because on the 23rd of August, we actually do a ballot draw, which decides which candidate is listed first on the ballot. Once we do that, we can actually produce the ballot. And so probably sometime first week in September, the sample ballots will be available.
And they can probably start doing research now if they know the correct district or precinct they live in. They can look that up on the county and the city have websites where they can search their address, and it'll have a map and show which part they live in for what race, like which JP district or what city director district.
You can, the voter view that the Secretary of State's website, where you would go to check your voter registration. Excuse me. If you scroll all the way to the very bottom, there's a little tab that says district. If you click on that district, it'll tell you what Justice of the Peace district, what Hot Springs Director district, if you live in the city, what state rep, what state senate. It'll tell you each one of those districts that you get to vote in.
And so we know who all the candidates are going to be. That deadline has passed, but there's
Correct.
a couple of ballot issues we don't know for sure. How many ballot issues do we know for sure right now, and how many are up in the air that they can expect to see?
Well, nothing is for sure until it happens. The only one that we know for sure is the one that came from the legislature. That'll be ballot issue number 1. And all this does is it allows the scholarship lottery program to also work for trade schools. When that constitutional amendment was written, trade schools were not included in the list of institutions that could accept those scholarships. And this is just a correction for that. So that's for sure going to be on the ballot. The other one that has been approved for the ballot is the Polk County or Russellville casino amendment. Originally, voters voted to statewide to allow a casino in Russellville, and it didn't get built. And now this amendment would actually change it to local control. They'd have to have local approval before they could have a casino. Even if they had statewide approval, it still would require local approval. There's again a lawsuit on that, but it probably will appear on the ballot. There's a medical marijuana issue on the ballot that actually is still, they're still collecting signatures. They turned in signatures. Actually, it should be over by now. I don't know if they've got the correct number or not, but they got 75% of what they needed by the cutoff date, which was August 5th. July 5th. So they got 30 more days, which would have made it August 5th to collect the rest of the signatures, and then the Secretary of State would have to check them. So that may or may not appear on the ballot. The abortion issue, they turned in signatures. Again, it's in the Supreme Court decided on which ones of those get counted and whether that'll be on the ballot. So because of that, the possibility exists that there'll be some issues on the ballot that won't count. We had this in 2016. We had 7 issues on the ballot, and 3 of them didn't count. So that's confusing to voters. So I hope they get all this figured out before it's time for us to publish the ballot. All this has to happen by the first week in September. Because once we produce a ballot, it's going to be on the ballot for everybody. We can't go back, and once we certify that this is our ballot, we can't make any changes to it. So I hope they get all this figured out, but chances are they won't.
Gotcha. And then those are the statewide issues, and are there any local level or county issues?
There is a local issue that could possibly show up on the ballot, and it's I don't really know what they call it. Some people call it a defund the library, but it's basically to change the millage rate on property, on personal and real property that funds the library. Currently, the library gets, I believe, it's 1.6 mills, and this local issue would change that to 1 mill. So it would drop the contribution to the library by 0.6 mills. Again, that's going to be in court, and we don't know what's going to happen with that, but it's getting close, so chances are it will appear on the ballot.
Right. So say somebody shows up to vote, and you and I both encourage them to do all their research, but there's some that they just don't know how they want to vote on, a candidate or a issue. Are they able to skip some?
Absolutely. You do not have to vote in every race. We have a lot of people that will only vote in the presidential race and ignore everything else. And conversely, we have people that won't vote in the presidential race and vote for everything else. So you don't have to vote in every race. You can pick and choose the ones you wish to vote in. The problem with the issues is if you don't understand them, it's a little scary to just make a decision right there without doing your research. About 2/3 of the issues that show up on the ballot pass. And that's because I don't think people fully understand what they're voting on. So that's why I encourage everyone to do your homework.
Absolutely. And speaking of that homework, there will be an opportunity to do that here at the library. There's going to be a nonpartisan program hosted by the Hot Springs Civitan Club on Thursday, September 19th at 6 p.m. That's going to have someone from the Garland County Extension Office. One of their agents is going to do a presentation on all of the ballot issues and give the nonpartisan points of view for that, which they did a couple years ago in 2022, and it was a great program. So I encourage everyone that has questions about how they want to vote on any of the issues on the ballot to attend that, and that will also be recorded and live streamed like this.
There's also the University of Arkansas also does a very good presentation on ballot issues, showing both sides of all issues. So as election commission, we can't even explain an issue to a voter, unfortunately, because the inflection of our voice could lean them one way or the other. So we can't tell a voter anything about an issue or a candidate on a ballot. If somebody comes in and wants to know which one's the Republican candidate, we can't tell them. We can show them a sample ballot and let them make their own decision, but we can't say anything that might lead them one way or the other. But they can go to the University of Arkansas for issues, for local races, or even any of the contested races. You know, they could talk to the political parties. The real problem is with the judges, like the Supreme Court judges. It's hard to find information about a judge, and it's hard to make a good decision without knowing. Uh, and unfortunately, a lot of people, I like this name better than that name, and that's how they pick.
Or I like their logo. I see that more.
Yeah, true.
So you mentioned earlier poll workers, and it sounds like Garland County is doing better than some other counties, but is there still a need locally?
Well, right now, I hate to turn anybody away because for the most part, our poll workers are older folks, and things happen. We get sick. We have issues. So I always try to keep for each election 15% or more brand new people. There's a little more training involved in a new person than a person that's done this a few times, but we try to keep some new blood in there constantly. And with the new requirements with the LEARNS Act, we're trying to get some students from schools, younger people, to help us. And the schools have been agreeable to try to do that. Logistically, it's a little bit of an issue because these people need transportation. They need a lot of things that the older poll workers already have.
Great. So if somebody is curious about helping out and being a poll worker, do they just reach out to the Election Commission?
They can go to our website, garlandcountyvote.org. There's a poll worker tab at the top, and all the paperwork they need to fill out is there. And the number for our office, or they can email us or text us. Anywhere those things work. Again, the closer we get, we start scheduling people. We're scheduling people right now. So we never really know exactly how many we need until we get that done, because we could do a poll and have 5 poll workers for the primary, and that was fine. For this election, it may take 10 for the same poll because the volume is just so much more. So those are things that they change daily. So I don't ever want to turn anybody away. If they're interested in doing it, I want to talk to them.
Excellent. So unfortunately, it's no secret that Arkansas is a state that ranks near the bottom of voter registration and turnout. How does that trend apply to us at a county level?
Well, we follow Arkansas pretty close. Our turnout is slightly larger than the state's average. Our turnout in younger people is worse than the state average. Younger people just don't, for whatever reason, vote. I guess because they can't vote on their phone. I don't know. But it takes an effort to actually go to the polls to vote. And younger people just don't tend to do that. So now that we're talking about Arkansas being low turnout, we're also, excuse me, one of the safest voting systems in the country. We rank number 5 or number 6 as far as voter integrity. So usually Arkansas is pretty low on the totem pole on most things, but on correct and honest elections, we're near the top.
Is there anything the County Election Commission is doing to engage younger voters or improve that turnout?
We try to go to each school district and put on a seminar, typically for juniors and seniors, and we do almost a civics lesson, because civics is really not taught like it used to be taught in our school system. So about why we vote, and when we vote, and why it's important. And we show some statistics that well over 80% of the vote the voters are 55 years of age or older. In the 18 to 24 range, which is our lower group of voters, it's less than 8% of the vote. So what I tell these younger people when I talk to them is all these old people are deciding how much tax you pay. If there's a tax issue on the ballot, these older people decided how much tax you're going to pay for the rest of your life. And we get some positive uh, feedback from that, but I, it doesn't always relate to them coming to the polls to vote.
Yeah. I think people also don't understand how close some of these local races can be. They take for granted that Arkansas is going to vote one way or another for president, but then some of these JP and city director races, they come down to less than 100 votes.
Oh yeah, in the primary election, we had two primary races. One of them was 17 votes, and the other one was 25 votes. So it doesn't take much to. You always have the people that go out and vote for their candidate, and that's really probably 50% or less of the voters. It's those 50% that don't. They're undecided. Some of them decide when they're standing in front of the voting machine. Those are the people that decide most elections. We did an audit of our machines after this last election, where we hand counted ballots and came up with the same total the machine did. We only did about 750 ballots. The state board of election commissioners came into our county, and they counted 51% of our primary, 6,600 votes. And again, it 100% matched our results from our machines. The one county that had paper ballots, they were 11 ballots short. So if you've got a race that's won by 17 votes and you have 11 missing, I'd be concerned. One vote missing is enough to make me concerned.
So there's a lot of focus on voter registration, which is great. I did some math, and you probably have exact statistics, but we have maybe about 14,000 people in Garland County who are eligible to be registered to vote and weren't in the last election. But an additional concern, even more so than that, is people who are registered and aren't voting. That number is almost double.
Well, yeah, it's true. The actual registered voters is a little misleading, because you go and renew your driver's license, they ask you if you want to register to vote, and you say yes, and with no intention of ever voting. And so those numbers are skewed a little bit for that way. And a lot of people feel like that if they're registered to vote, they're going to get called for jury duty. Well, that's not the case, because if you've got a driver's license, you're going to get called for jury duty. So I don't know why they choose not to vote, but again, it's their choice. Voting is a choice, and you have to make an effort to go to the polls, to take the time out to do it. It is serious business. But like I said, voting is private. You're allowed to mark your ballot without anybody watching it. If you need help, you can actually bring somebody with you to help you, or you can ask the election commission to help you. And if we do, we'll have two people helping you, because we don't want one person leaning you one way or the other. So we have one person watching to make sure we don't say anything wrong, and one person to actually help the voter.
Excellent. That kind of ties into another issue of trying not to sway voters when they get to the polls. Can you explain the electioneering rules?
Arkansas law requires the election commission to control the building where we're voting and 100 feet from the front door, which means that nothing can happen within that 100 feet as far as electioneering. No signs, no bumper stickers. In fact, at our location on Ouachita, our headquarters, if you come in a parking lot and make a circle, you're actually entering that 100 feet. So if you have a bumper sticker on your car, you're violating the law when you do that. It's just something that people don't think about. Outside that 100 feet, it's private property. Whoever owns the property decides on what they allow and don't allow. for the most part, most places allow somebody to stand and hold a sign, but some locations won't allow you to attach a sign to the property. For instance, the county property where our office is, you can't attach a sign to the fence. You can't leave an unattended sign stuck in the ground, but you can stand out there and hold signs all you want. Some people get concerned because people stop them and ask them questions on the way in the poll, and some people think that is a voter intimidation, but it's not. They're just trying to promote their candidate, and you can talk to them or not talk to them. It's totally up to the voter.
Good to know. And so for the record, the library is one of the polling locations. So both the signs and people holding signs are allowed on property. You just have to stay within those restrictions from the Election Commission, be more than 100 feet from the entrance once the early voting starts.
Yeah, we'll put out a distance marker, and for the most part, they're right on the money, but sometimes because it'll wind up in the middle of a street or whatever, and we have to adjust a little bit. But the law is specific in 100 feet from the main entrance. Well, at the library, you've got two entrances on this one side, so it's a little hard to determine which is the main entrance. But we do the best we can, and where it's fair to everybody. I can't believe that it makes a difference if it's 95 feet or 105 feet, but the law is the law.
I'm sure it's some polling locations that there's a race as soon as you put the marker out to get that 101 foot spot.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. And the problem is people forget, and somebody drives by, a friend of theirs in a car, and they'll walk over and start talking to them inside that 100 feet with a sign in their hand. And they just don't think about doing it when they do it. And nobody's going to put them in jail. We just go after them. You can't do that, and explain the rules to them. And as long as they don't keep repeating it, we're fine.
And these rules also apply to the people that are just innocently showing up to vote. They might have a T-shirt on or something. If they walk in, you'll ask them to
Correct.
Go back out and change, or
turn it inside out, cover it up. Again, sometimes people don't think, and usually it's a hat or something like that that's easily removed. But people don't think about that when they go to vote. I've seen people that took their hat off and laid on the dashboard of their car, where their car was parked within that 100 feet. So it's just as illegal to be sitting on the dashboard of the car as it was to be on their head.
So moving on to another topic, there was an article in the Sentinel Record yesterday, August 12th, and it was discussing the topic of paper ballot voting. You, of course, were quoted in that, and I know you've discussed it in a past public meeting. Can you elaborate on that topic?
Well, there's a lot of talk with some organizations thinking that a paper ballot is more secure because it's a piece of paper that you can look at. Well, we have a paper ballot. It just happens to be printed by a machine as opposed to marked by hand.
And they get a copy of that in their hand when they've submitted it.
So the paper ballot, we use the paper ballot for absentee, for mail-in ballots. For somebody that can't come to the poll or that's going to be out of town, we'll actually mail them a ballot. The ballot has a little oval that they're supposed to black in to make their choice. Some people do that. Some people circle it. Some people put an X on it. Some people draw a line through it and pick something else. So somebody has to decide, what did that voter intend? And then also in the past, and again, this is 30 plus years in the past, we've seen where somebody didn't vote in a race, and whoever was counting the race said, oh, they meant to do this, and mark that. So it's a little scary to me to have a piece of paper marked out there that hasn't been at least scanned to where we have a permanent record of how that voter intended to vote. Because in Garland County you can vote anywhere because these electronic poll books have all of our voters in them. But if we have, in this case, I think it's going to be 33 ballot styles. If we had to have 33 stacks of ballots at each location, the chance of somebody getting the wrong one is tremendous. And I don't want to take that chance. So we couldn't do that any longer if we did paper ballots. We would have to go back. If any of you remember 10 years ago, we assigned people to a particular location where they had to go to that location, and maybe that location only had 3 ballot styles, and the risk was significantly lower. But they had to go to that one location to cast their ballot. The problem is, if they moved since the last election, they went to the wrong place, and that place doesn't have a legal ballot for them to vote. So they would have to go to a second location to get their legal ballot. And especially if it happened late at night on election night, chances of that happening are probably slim. So therefore, we've disenfranchised that one voter by not letting them vote their legal ballot.
And in this article, you spoke about the accuracy of paper ballots versus machine ballots. And there's actual some evidence of other counties in Arkansas that have been audited with this. What were the results?
Well, prior to this year, the State Board of Election Commissions audited 55,000 votes and found zero that machine counting error. We had a couple, I think 3 votes out of this 55,000 that some poll worker handled the ballot wrong, put it in the wrong slot or that kind of thing. But as far as what the machine tallied and what the ballots actually had printed on them, they were accurate. In the March election this year, since that March election, the state has audited 28,859 ballots in 15 counties. 14 counties were 100% accurate. The one county that did paper ballots was, like I said earlier, was off by 11 ballots, and that's enough to concern me.
And those 14 other counties did not use paper ballots?
No, they used the same system we use, which is, it is a paper ballot. The difference between a machine printed paper ballot and what you call a pre-printed paper ballot, that's really what the difference is. You still have a piece of paper you can look at to see. And if we do an audit or recount, we actually do the name that is written on that ballot, not that little barcode. We could easily run them through a machine and recount them. We're going to get the same results as we got the first time. So we go through and actually physically read the name on that ballot when we recount. And so now we're over 80,000 ballots in Arkansas in the last few years, and zero mistakes.
And Garland County did go through an audit with some of its races in the primary.
We did. They counted more of our ballots than anyone. 51% of our ballots. Little over 6,606, I believe, was the number. And again, it was 100% a match to what our machines counted on election night.
All right. Well, thank you, Gene. So is there anything else you can think of that we haven't covered? Any frequently asked questions that you get that I may not have asked you?
Well, the most important thing about it, voting, is to do your research and know what's on the ballot and what your choices are. That's really the important. People go to the polls to vote, and they start asking questions. And unfortunately, we can't answer a lot of those questions if it's concerned what's on the ballot. We can answer procedure questions all day long, but we cannot tell them. We had some problems in our primary because you had to choose which party's ballot you wanted. That people want to know which ballot a certain candidate was on, and we couldn't tell them. We could show them the samples, let them look through it, but we could not actually tell them that it was a Republican ballot or a Democratic ballot or a nonpartisan ballot. So doing the research before you get there is the important thing.
All right. Thank you very much. So if you tuned in late, I know the broadcast worked from the beginning on YouTube. There might have been some issues with it airing on Facebook, but you can watch this video in its entirety on the library's YouTube channel. There's a couple dates I want to go over that tie into the election and everything you might need to know for some voter education. So first up is that date I mentioned earlier, Thursday, September 19th at 6 p.m. with the Civitan group as well as the Garland County Extension Office using that U of A template that Gene mentioned earlier. That's going to be a presentation on the ballot issues Thursday, September 19th. And then a couple weeks later on Tuesday, October 1st, we're going to have a candidate forum for Justice of the Peace candidates. So all of the JPs have been invited to participate in that. Most of them have already signed up. And all of these events will be live streamed like this as well, but they'll also be available to the public, first come, first serve seating. I know last time we had a candidate forum, Gene was here. It was standing room only. We were probably breaking fire code.
Yeah.
But it was a great turnout and very informative to get to know and hear from the JPs. There's also a chance for the audience that's here in person to ask them questions in addition to just hearing their regular speeches. So that's Tuesday, October 1st, 6 p.m. Doors will open at 5:30 to get a seat. And then we'll be having the next week on Wednesday, October 9th at 6 p.m., 5:30 seating. A city directors candidates forum. So there's not as many city director candidates as there are JPs. So that one hopefully won't last as long as the one the week before, but same deal. You'll get an opportunity to hear from them and ask them questions. And then finally, of course, we have the election. The library is one of several polling locations here in Garland County. So Gene, will you remind us of the times and dates for those?
Early voting starts on October 21st. So for 2 weeks, Monday through Friday, 8 to 6. On Saturdays, 2 Saturdays, 10 to 4. And then election day, November 5th, 7:30 to 7:30. So the library will be an early voting location and also an election day location. So there's plenty of opportunity to get out and vote early.
So they have 14 days they can vote?
Correct. There's 13 early voting dates and then election day.
So you got 14 chances to vote every day when you wake up. Do your research and go to one of the locations. We'd love to see you at the library or any of the other locations and do your research and show up and cast your ballot.
And when you can vote at any location, you can live someplace, work someplace else, shop someplace else. Sometime during that 2-week period, you're going to drive by a voting location and just go vote.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Gene. You were very thorough and informative as always. Any last comments? I'll give you the last word.
The last word is study what's on the ballot and don't forget to vote. First, check your registration and then study what's on the ballot and then get out and vote. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you, Gene. And thank you everyone for watching. Remember, you can go back and watch from the beginning. Please share this video so you can educate your friends and neighbors on how to vote. Take care.